Back at it again from technical difficulties. We were in the midst of season 4. All right.
Pushing through, almost done with half of the show.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not almost done.
With half of the show. So Sansa is rescued by a random dude that she knew, Sir Dantas, I think is his name, or something like that.
Dantos, yeah.
He delivers her to a ship that Peter Baelish is waiting on. We've barely mentioned Littlefinger so far. And he immediately has Dantos killed. And Sansa's like, why would you do that? And he's like, well, bitch, I just killed Joffrey. So we get that reveal. And then he's like, I'm going to take you to Lysa and get you out of here because this place is whack and you'd get in some trouble.
And there's vague overtones that he also wants Sansa.
Yeah, I mean, 3 episodes later, he just explicitly is like, I only ever loved your mom and never could be with her, and now I love you.
Yeah. Yep.
So he takes her to the Vale, and Sansa gets to see that Lysa is crazy. And she's only gotten crazier since we last saw her in season 1. And it's obvious that Baelish has just been, like, manipulating her because she's dumb and crazy. And so Littlefinger marries Lysa. And then the same episode, Lysa is like getting jealous because Peter kisses Sansa with Lysa looking on. So Lysa confronts Sansa and is going to push her out the moon door.
Oh boy.
But then instead, Peter pushes Lysa through the moon door. And then they get interrogated by like the heads of state for the Vale who are like, hey, what happened? Because we knew she was crazy, but we weren't sure that she was just going to kill herself. And Peter's like, yeah, she just killed herself. So they bring in Sansa, and Sansa starts by revealing like a half-truth, which is like, well, I'm Sansa Stark, and Peter rescued me. And then Lysa killed herself, and it was really sad. And then they, like, this whole plot is supposed to be that, like, Peter is teaching Sansa how to be an effective political operator like him. It's also revealed in this plot that Peter is the one that assassinated Jon Arryn, and that it is actually him that caused the Game of Thrones in the first place, because he is the one that started the fighting between the Starks and the Lannisters. He deliberately bankrupted the crown, started them fighting each other. It should also be noted that this is like a real deep cut, but Littlefinger also started Robert's Rebellion. This is like a deep piece of lore that is not explicitly said, but basically when he was young, he loved Catelyn Stark, but Brandon Stark, who was Ned's older brother, also loved Catelyn. And so they dueled each other, and Brandon like nearly killed Littlefinger. And so then Littlefinger one day.
But I'm pretty sure Catelyn was like, no, like, don't kill him. Like, I'm pretty sure she stepped in and was like, no, please show him pity.
Correct.
Which caused him to love her that much more.
Mm-hmm. And then years later, when Lyanna, Ned's sister, goes off with Rhaegar, which this is a whole future thing where Lyanna and Rhaegar were actually in love and had Jon as their child.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Just starting to spoil everything. Peter is the one that tells Brandon Stark that Lyanna was captured and kidnapped, not willingly went away with Rhaegar. And so it's his initial lie that causes the Starks to go south to Aerys aggressively and get killed. So he starts the original Robert's Rebellion.
Wait, what's the lie that he told again?
He told. All right, so this might be just too deep now and into the lore reads. Lyanna Stark, right? Brandon's sister, years
And
in the
Eddard's
past,
sister.
and Neddard Stark's sister was in a thing with Rhaegar Targaryen, but not many people knew that. But Littlefinger did because he always had the big brain with the knowledge. So he told Brandon that she was kidnapped, which caused him to ride south and get killed by King Aerys. And his death is what caused Robert's rebellion.
But where was she
She's just
actually?
she's just hanging out in a castle trying to give birth to her child.
Okay.
Yeah, she wasn't captured. She willingly went somewhere to have her kid with Rhaegar.
Got it.
So it just should be noted that Littlefinger caused not one but two wars.
Is
And
that
it's
the
worth
child that's head was dashed,
that was Jon Snow.
but wasn't dashed?
Jon Snow's still alive in
Who's
the show.
What child's head was dashed against the wall?
Oh no.
Because that sounds like that story. It straight up does.
That is Rhaegar's actual wife's children.
Got it.
The Targaryen children.
Yes.
So Rhaegar's actual wife by marriage is one of the Martells, but his mistress was Lyanna Stark.
Martell, not Tyrell?
Correct.
Okay.
Martell of the Sand, not
Yes.
Tyrell of the High Garden.
Of the flowers. Understood.
Yes. Yeah.
Just
flowers, not red sand, with rotting lemons and gout feet.
Okay, now we're on the same page. We did that little foray. All right, back on point here.
Basically, it's worth noting because this is the point in the show where they finally reveal, oh, Littlefinger is pure evil and he's been big braining everything and it's worth noting now because 6 episodes later, Littlefinger goes from like, I literally masterminded the whole plot of the show to like he just turns his brain off for the rest of the show. Everything intelligent he did is just gone to waste.
Yeah. It's like he like suddenly just his brain just jumped off the cliff.
A great example would be he tells Sansa all these like bits of wisdom about how to be like a good like politicking guy, and one of them is like usually it's the things we don't know that get us killed. And then in like the 4th episode of the 5th season, he meets Ramsay Bolton and he's like, I don't know much about you. That intrigues me. Rather than like, the thing he just said, he just did not go the other way.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where Sansa's thing ends up with Baelish. They're basically just in the Vale, and they're gonna go do some stuff in season 5.
This is where there's an inflection point with the books as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens in the books so far. Season 5 is where everything diverges.
Yes, because Baelish is alive in the books. I don't think Baelish is killed.
Well, we're getting way ahead on that, but I mean, he is alive in the books. But so is most of the people who haven't died who die in the last 2 seasons.
Right.
Like Daenerys is alive in the books, but will obviously die at the end. Because she's Hitler.
But she saved all those slaves.
The fandom, we can't get into that now. We have to push onward. Arya and the Hound get to the Bloody Gate, right? And they're about to go in, and he's like, finally, I can get rid of this kid and move on with my life, give her to Lysa. And the people are like, oh, sorry, Arya, like, your aunt is dead. And then Arya just bursts out laughing because of just the tragedy of, like, everywhere they go, nothing works out.
Mm-hmm.
So then they turn around and they're like, fuck, I guess I don't know what we're going to do. Meanwhile, out in the world, Brienne, who we haven't mentioned yet in season 4, has been out with Podrick Payne, another character we haven't mentioned who's not important. He's just like an idiot.
How
They're
dare you?
they're wandering around Westeros looking for Sansa and Arya. They go to the inn and meet Hot Pie, who goes on that rant about kidney pies, and he sends them north to the Vale, where Brienne runs into the Hound, and she's like, "You're Arya Stark. Like, I can protect you." And the Hound literally says, like, "You dumb bitch. There's nowhere safe in the whole world." So then Brienne beats the shit out of the Hound, and then she and Podrick leave to look for Arya, and the Hound is mortally wounded. Like, he's just fucked up beyond belief. And he's like, "Can you just kill me, Arya? I want to die." And she's like, "Nah." So she takes his money and leaves him for dead. And then she goes off to a ship where she produces a MacGuffin from one of the earlier seasons, a coin that Jack and Hagar guy gave her. And she trades the MacGuffin for a safe passage to Braavos.
Yep. Which to be clear, like, I don't like the way she gets to Braavos, but going to Braavos is cool. Like, her being in Braavos, I enjoy.
Oh, I don't mind trading the coin for the passage or whatever.
It's a little contrived, but
well, these books do the show and the books operate off of a lot of plot contrivance.
Speaking of which, we're gonna need to go. We're gonna need to keep going.
All right, season 5. I guess we'll keep things light and just try to blitz through this and get to the end, so we can then go back and talk about things. Does that sound good?
Please. There's some really fun battles in the last or the next 2 seasons, I would say. The next 2. There's some fun battles. Like, enjoyable to watch.
All right, so season 5 in King's Landing, a bunch of shit. Everybody's dead now. Joffrey's dead, so now Tommen is the king, and little kid Tommen is just like a dumb kid, and Marjorie wins him over.
He's like 13.
He's like a little kid. He's even younger in the books. And so Marjorie basically wins him over from Cersei because Cersei is slipping. So Cersei chooses to back this religious group that's gaining fervor throughout the city.
Sparrows.
The Faith Militant, run by the High Sparrow. And these
Jonathan
Sparrows are
Pryce.
just like, another great actor. They're just a bunch of radical idiots. And so she gets them to arrest Marjorie for sex crimes because she is maybe not a virgin. I don't remember what her exact crime was, but she and...
Whose crime? Marjorie?
Yeah, Marjorie's arrested by the Faith Militant for sex crimes.
Oh my
Because she had some sex scandals when she married that gay guy back in season 2.
Gotcha. There were sounds over here.
So yeah, then Marjorie is just like, "Yeah, I guess I was married to a gay guy, my bad." And then the Faith is like, "Yeah, that's okay." And then they get Loras Tyrell to become a member of their dumb cult.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Or Lancel Lannister becomes a member of their cult. Because Lancel used to fuck Cersei on the regular, because Cersei only fucks other Lannisters.
He is a cousin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
right, they're not brother and sister.
Cersei miscalculated because, having a bunch of sex scandals. Oh yeah, good point. I gotta change my background to season 5. I've saved a background for each season. Basically of just the big moments.
Are you not entertained by my ice?
Mastodon. So yeah, Cersei gets arrested because she has all those sex scandals. And then she is tortured a bunch, and then she has to confess to her crimes, and then she's ridden through the streets naked, and people throw stuff at her, and the lady says shame a lot.
Shaved head.
Mm-hmm. And then she gets back to the Red Keep, where Qyburn, remember this guy from way earlier, is waiting for her with a reanimated zombie version of the Mountain named Sir Robert, who picks her up, and then she's like, "We're gonna get revenge," and that's pretty much everything that happens in season 5 in King's Landing.
Do you want to check in with Khaleesi, which we haven't even mentioned that her name is also that?
She has like 90 names. I don't give a fuck about any of them.
Mother of Dragons.
Queen of the Andals and of the First Men and of the
Queen of the
Stormlands
Slaves.
and
Freer of
whatever.
Slaves. Mother of
Yes,
Slaves.
Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, all this shit. Yeah, so Daenerys is having a hard time ruling Meereen. Tyrion goes through a stupid journey to show up where he's kidnapped by Jorah, and then he escapes from Jorah and gets to Daenerys, and then Jorah is put in the Colosseum pits or something.
Yes.
And Dany, and this is where stuff starts to happen where there's no character motivation. It's just, if you've been following the show, it makes sense because it's what you would want, but not what the characters would do. So Tyrion and Daenerys immediately get along because they both are in the same show and know the character from the show. And so then Tyrion gives her a bunch of terrible advice, which goes poorly. And so then there's an uprising from the slave masters in Meereen against her.
All of the ones she didn't kill.
Yeah, because she only killed like half of them. Or
So
so,
the lesson there is you got to kill all the slave owners.
The Sons of the Harpy is what they're called. They kill Barristan Selmy off screen.
The only way to get good things done in the world is to kill all the bad people.
Done dirt cheap. Dirty deed. So yeah, this she's like in the Colosseum watching people kill each other, and then the masters rise up against her and she escapes on Drogon, and he flies her way out in the middle of nowhere and leaves her. And then the Dothraki come up to her, and that's how the season ends for Daenerys.
Mm-hmm. It's really, really odd.
It's exactly what happens in the books.
It's very
with a bunch
odd.
of changes, like the fact that Tyrion is not there.
Yeah.
Because Tyrion is off with Aegon Targaryen and Jon Connington and
Nope, we can't mention those people because they're not on the show.
What about Quentin Martell?
No.
What about Strong Belwas?
You can't mention anyone who has blue hair or blue beards.
Dario's in the show.
Does he have a blue beard?
No,
can't have those people in the show.
I did just name a bunch of really important characters, just not in the show.
I feel like maybe
Barristan's still alive in the books. He just didn't die.
Do you think that if there was like, cause like the show was coming out kind of like right before there was more of a like LGBTQ plus like movement, do you think that would have resulted in like those characters actually being like as they were in the books, or no? Just a side question.
No.
Yeah,
the show already leans into like being bisexual's cool. Like that's like an actual like element of the show.
Yeah,
like Oberyn is
despite them like, just having like really contrived like character things that happened, like Yara being lesbian. Like they just do like the worst things that like if you watch a movie from another time that has like a character who happens to be lesbian, it's usually like they usually just don't treat that character like a person, and they're just a cardboard cutout of like, this is what it's like if you're lesbian.
Tokenism.
Yes, the token lesbian. Yes, and there are characters that are like that throughout. But yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get anything with Aegon or Jon Connington or I forget who else is over there. But yeah. And Tyrion obviously doesn't go there because they don't exist.
Penny the dwarf.
Oh God, I thought
you were part of that whole plot. No, not
you.
Penny. Not please. That. No.
Her brain is barely hanging on there after that one.
Bing bong.
Penny? Penny?
Yeah, Sheldor.
Oh.
Bazinga.
Oh boy.
No, what I
Speaking of
think really happened is, so we talked about how the books were adapted before. Book 4, A Feast of Crows, and Book 5, A Dance of Dragons. Elements of those books are in season 5, but only elements. Whole plots are cut. I mean, entire storylines with tons of characters, like we were just discussing, are cut.
this is
So
also kind of where we start to see the hints at things to come, where like time and place don't really matter as much. It's not as bad in
slightly.
this season, but
No.
it gets really, really awful.
Yes.
This season is not terrible. It's fine. The battles are fun, at least, like I said. But yeah, characters start doing things that are not true to their character, as you mentioned.
Definitely where I start to disagree with most people on the show. I think this season's like unwatchable. I think it has 2 good episodes and 8 very, very bad. Like, I think the writing is horrific. Like, I can't watch this season. Hard Home is a great episode. The episode where John goes to the north to parlay with the wildling leaders to try to get them to move south, and they all get massacred by the Night King.
Mastodon.
Including Mastodon. That's not the only reason I like that episode.
No, I know. It just so happens that one of your favorite bands has a bunch of members in the show.
And they get killed and turned into zombies. And they wrote a terrible song for the show. Yeah, so I think the problem is books 4 and 5 are really, really complicated with all the extra characters. And since the show was getting more popular, rather than continuing to expand the cast, they wanted to use their budget to highlight these moments like you're talking about. So that's why the action still seems to be good. But that's only partially true. Like, there are some scenes that are like the worst choreographed action in the show. Like, maybe you don't remember this season has a whole plot line in Dorne where Jaime and Bronn go to Dorne to rescue Marcella. And there's just like horrifically bad action scenes, like the worst action scenes in the show.
Where they're like fighting in the streets.
Yeah. The choreography is just, what is happening? Why didn't you spend any money on this? Why was this shot in your backyard? The whole Dorne plot is Jaime and Bronn waste 4 hours of your viewing time dealing with Oberyn's children to get Marcella back, which they get her back, even though she's engaged to the Prince of Dorne, whose name is like Dorian, I think. Unlike Doran. I think his name is Dorian. Anyway, Dorian is murdered by the Sand Snakes, and then Marcella's murdered by the Sand Snakes. So that's cool. So Jaime wastes a bunch of time and she dies anyway.
I think the only other thing to mention here is...
Oh, there's still a lot.
Stannis.
Yeah, so Stannis is in the north. Stannis wants Jon to help him fight the war, and he'll make him like the leader of the North, but Jon's like, I'm not leaving the Night's Watch. Stannis is like, that's pretty honorable. So then they're gonna burn Mance Rayder to use his burned flesh for magic stuff, so Jon executes him instead. Completely different than the books. Mance Rayder's still alive in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And then Stannis is like, yeah, that's good. And then Stannis leaves to go take back Winterfell from Ramsay. But on the way there, it starts to snow. And because of the snow, his troops get stopped in the snow. And so he has to burn his only daughter alive to melt some of the snow. But the act of burning the daughter alive causes his wife to kill herself and half of his men to desert him. So then, instead of doing anything else, he's like, I'll take my now half reduced army and attack Winterfell anyway. So then all of his men are killed, and then he's killed off screen by Brienne, who randomly shows up at the end of the battle and kills him because he killed Renly earlier and she liked Renly, so she killed him and it was a big Yas Queen moment. Then also during the battle, Sansa and Reek inexplicably flee Winterfell by jumping off of a rampart. Meanwhile, Littlefinger takes Sansa to Winterfell and sells her / marries her to Ramsay Bolton for no reason.
Yeah.
And then he just pieces out and leaves. Then Sansa, after going through years of abuse, and finally growing strong and moving on to something more, to a better plot line where she could finally develop as a character. Instead, they backtrack the whole way. She's repeatedly abused and raped. All this horrible shit. For no reason. None of it happens in the books. It's not motivated by anything. It only exists to shock the viewer. And then she just escapes with Reek and meets up with Brienne. And Brienne pledges her life to Sansa. And then up in the north, Jon, with Stannis now gone, decides to go and meet with what's left of the wildlings, and he finds out there's like 100,000 of them living up north. And he's like, oh shit, we gotta get you guys south because there's the Night King's coming. But he's too late, and the Night King shows up, and they kill like all 100,000 wildlings, and then they turn them all into zombies. And so it's like, oh, all of the other fights everywhere in Essos and all over Westeros, it's all irrelevant because there's this one guy behind me who's just way more powerful than everyone else. And he's just going to eventually come down and kill everyone. So that's crazy. So then Jon goes back to Castle Black, and then Alistair Thorne and a bunch of the other mutinous, evil, bad men there just stab him to death and he dies. Then in Braavos, Arya is being trained to be Batman. And so Jaqen H'ghar is a part of he's a part of an elite group of people called the Faceless Men who magically can make their face other people's face, like John Travolta and Nick Cage from that film Face Off. And so all of these guys, they got their faces coming off, and then there's this lady named the Waif who trains with Arya and teaches her to be good with the sword and be nimble and stuff while taking people's faces off. And Arya says oysters, clams, and cockles like 300 times until you want to rip your own ears off. And then at the end of the season, Arya steals a face from the Faceless Man Temple, which is called like the Hall of the Dead or some really stupid on the nose name that George Martin came up while drunk.
Yeah.
Doesn't. So then Arya uses somebody else's face to go and kill Meryn Trant. Remember Meryn Trant? He killed Syrio Forel in like the 8th episode of the show. So she kills Meryn Trant, and then she goes back and tries to pretend like she didn't steal a face from the Hall of the Dead, but she did. And Jaqen H'ghar knew it because he's everywhere and he sees everything because he doesn't have a face. So then he turns her blind. How we doing?
House of Black and White. We're doing well. Yeah, the shit with Arya is unforgivable in my book. Because
it's just mishandled.
Really fun character to follow, and just having like the whole like Faceless Men thing kind of just doesn't go anywhere that it should. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to jump the gun.
So that's it, why I went through all that so quickly and so reductively and condescendingly is because season 6, which we'll immediately move on to, undoes all of the bullshit in season 5 and makes it
makes
creates
it
a vacuum
useless.
because there was no reason for any of it to have happened.
Yep.
So, for example, Jon Snow is immediately resurrected and then executes all the traitors. So there was no reason for him to just undoes all that.
Tell me how he's resurrected.
Oh, Melisandre like waves her hand over him and he just comes back to life because she's just hanging out there because she abandoned Stannis also because who the fuck knows why at this point anything is happening. Daenerys is in the middle of I guess Yeah, we'll do Daenerys next. Daenerys is like off with the Dothraki who hate her and they remember who she is. And they like put her in some house with a bunch of other women who are like, we're the women of the Dothraki and we resent you because you succeeded once when we all failed. And she goes, Yas, queen, and then she burns them all alive. And then her friends show up and she's like, the Dothraki are now mine again, bitch. And then she returns to Slaver's Bay with Tyrion, and the slaver people are there, and they're like, listen, we're gonna attack Marine if you don't do a deal with us. And she's like, bitch. And then she kills them all with her dragons, who are now fully grown killing machines. And then she uses the murdered guy's boats that you saw explode with dragon fire miraculously come back together, and she puts all her men on them and they all sail to Westeros. She's coming to Westeros finally after 6 seasons of her saying there's going to be dragons and we're going to go kill everybody. She finally gets it done.
The only way to take down Hitler is to become Hitler.
Slay queen. Anyway, Jon back at the north. Now that he's back from the dead and killed all the bad guys, there's only good guys now at the Night's Watch. He decides, because on a technicality he's dead, which means his watch has ended, which means he can leave the Night's Watch. So he leaves and takes all the that's literally the explanation they give in the show, by the way.
Yeah.
He leaves with the wildling army and meets up with Sansa somewhere. I guess they like meet up and they're like, let's retake Winterfell. Like they just do the Stannis thing again, but this time there's no snow. So they're like, we'll get him this time.
It's probably like Greywater Watch or something, or like Moat Cailin. I don't remember.
Yeah, and there's that whole scene with the Lady Mormont character who's super, super sassy and tells off everybody, you refuse the call. And she does all this stupid shit, and she calls everybody out for not helping Jon earlier, and Jon's like, I don't care, let's just go take Winterfell back. So they raise up an army of all the remaining North Bannermen, and they stand outside Winterfell, and Ramsay comes out, and he's like, well, my army's bigger than your army, so we're going to kill you. And then there's the Battle of the Bastards, which is this great episode that I'm reducing down to stupid plot points because the story's dumb, but the execution is actually top-notch for once. I would argue that's true of most of the season. Really, really high level of execution, really, really low level of storytelling.
Yep.
So they do
Absolutely.
this big dumb battle, which is awesome. The Karstarks and the Boltons against Jon, the Wildlings, and all the Northmen. Everybody's getting massacred in like a gigantic pile of bodies, and there's a big circle of shields stabbing and heads splattering. And then Peter Baelish shows up with all the Knights of the Vale, and they stab and slack, and everybody's dead except the good guys. And then they go into Winterfell, and he beats up Ramsay Bolton, and then Sansa feeds him to the dogs to get back at him for all those rapes. And now the North are all happy, and they're like, yay, King of the North, Jon Snow. And Sansa's like sitting in the back like, I should have been King of the North. And Peter Baelish is sitting in the back like, I should have been King of the North. All right, back in King's... Sorry, I don't know if you have anything to add or if you want me to slow down.
No, I'm just imagining if someone was listening to this at like 1.5 speed of you just absolutely flying like a dragon, burning the script.
Well, yeah, normally I think, speak pretty slowly on the show, so maybe it is a good change of pace for me to get going.
No, as you mentioned, like the plot is very contrived, but the execution is great. So like you're enjoying the fighting and everything, and then like once it slows down to be anything with plot or character, you're like, come on, just cut off some more people's heads.
Well, it's like, why did Ramsay take his bigger army outside of the castle to do the fight anyway? Oh, also, I forgot in that hasty explanation that Rickon Stark, who's just been disappeared for like 20 episodes, was captured at some point off screen by Ramsay, who kills Shaggy Dog off screen, brutal, and kills Asha on screen, brutal, and then executes Rickon on screen, super funny.
Oh,
I need to go back up. I need to go back up to these like characters and start Xing out the ones that are dead.
Shit, I do not remember that. I don't remember Rickon getting murdered.
Yeah, so the way the Battle of the Bastards starts is that Ramsay leads his army out, Jon Snow's army's out, and then he like has Rickon with him and he's like, Rickon, go meet your brother. So then Rickon like runs across the field, and as he's running, Jon is like, oh, Rickon. So he runs to meet him in the middle of the two armies, and then Ramsay is just like shooting arrows and they just kill Rickon. He just shoots him, he just shoots Rickon, and then he dies in
Right.
Jon's arms. And then Jon is just in the middle of the field because he's an idiot. And it's another one of those things where it's like, if you're even thinking a little bit, your brain hurts, but you don't think because the moment's awesome because Ramsay's soldiers are all charging and he's alone and he's got the sword. And it's like, yeah, yeah. In fact, that reminds me.
Yeah. Get him, John. Get him.
That reminds me of the. I
Oh,
had a-
you bastard!
I have an image queued up for every season.
You bastard.
In fact, the image you have right there.
That's what that's what I was gonna put.
The image you had
It is
behind you for a
mirrored,
while
though.
there is the one that I was going to use for
It is
season
perfectly
7.
mirrored though. But yeah, this I mean there's another one where that you were talking about with this where they like encircle the one zone.
That's this battle.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to find the picture. Yeah.
But yeah, the car Starks come out and circle.
Bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies. Yeah.
We gotta get back to.
In the meantime, Bran has been doing his own thing. He's been where's Brandon amongst all this?
Bran's up in a tree with the three-eyed raven, whose actor changed, and now it's played by legendary Swedish actor Max von Sydow, who plays some
Holy
kind
shit,
of
that's right.
omniscient time traveling wizard that like tells Bran all these secret things and shows him the future and the past simultaneously. But then in one of his visions, Bran sees the Night King, and the Night King touches him, and that somehow tells the Night King where Bran is hiding due to time travel mechanics or some logic of the show that's never explained. So then the Night King goes to the tree IRL, not in the visions, and they attack the tree. And so Bran's like, gotta go. And the three-eyed raven's like, let me just teleport into your brain real quick. So then Bran becomes the three-eyed raven.
They
So
do explain this in the books, by the way. It is explained in the books. Sorry. Keep going.
We're gonna get back to that because this has not happened in the books. So they try picture.
What?
The picture. I just forgot how crazy of a battle it's a great battle.
It's an awesome battle. Yeah.
In order to escape, Bran has to sacrifice his wolf summer. Boo, she finally died, or he, whatever it is, dies. And Hodor is warged by Raven Bran to hold the door. And as he's repeating hold the door, you realize that Bran's time traveling and warging abilities have merged together, and that through all of Hodor's life, he's been warged to say hold the door, which when repeated over and over again actually sounds like Hodor, which is why he always says Hodor. So there's time travel in the show now.
Yeah.
I wonder if that will come back.
Yeah.
Hint, it never does. Great moment for Hodor. Very, very sad. But
it sucks.
He's dead. Bran and Mira get away, and they're gonna get killed in the woods. But then Benjen Stark, remember Benjen Stark from the pilot episode? Pilot episode, Benjen Stark shows up, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a zombie, but I'm one of the only good zombies in the whole world." And so he saves them and gets them back south of the wall, and they return to Winterfell.
Absolutely awesome name, also Benjen.
Yeah,
strictly better than Benjamin. Benjen sounds like engine.
King's Landing. So Cersei decides she needs to get revenge on all the people that burned her, and so she slowly but methodically doesn't do anything for the whole season and is politically outplayed by everyone once again. But then she uses Qyburn's magic connections to put wildfire everywhere and then blows up the Sept of Baelor, with all of the other main characters in King's Landing in it. So all of the Tyrells dead in one instant.
Yep.
All of the Faith militant people, including the High Sparrow, dead in an instant. So all of the plot from season 5 undone in a second. Awesome scene, because the whole thing is really cool, where a nuclear bomb goes off in King's Landing.
And it's green.
Yeah, it's like Blackwater, but cool. And then Tommen kills himself because everybody he knew and liked was in that sept. So now Cersei, alone in the world with all her children dead, sits and drinks by herself. Jaime this season has been banished from King's Landing because Cersei's angry at him, not for the rape that happened several years ago, but just because she calls him the dumbest Lannister. So he goes to the Riverlands to help the Freys try to take back the castle that the Tullys have. I don't remember the name of it. They use the prisoner Edmure Tully. Remember Edmure Tully from the Red Wedding? They use prisoner Edmure Tully as bait to open up the drawbridge or whatever, and they get
fish
in.
bait.
Yeah, and they use the fish bait to kill Braden Blackfish Rivers. So he's dead finally. At long last, that cool character that's still alive in the books, that the thing happened completely differently. Finally, he's dead in the show.
Their seat is River Run.
Oh, that's the name of the castle? Oh. Yeah, so they take River Run by killing the Blackfish. Because Edmure Tully's a scumbag. Arya, remember, she went blind in the last season as a consequence for her meddling with the Faceless Men. Well, after like an episode, she gets her sight back because Jaqen H'ghar's like, actually, that's not fair. We shouldn't make you blind. We should actually just teach you to be better at assassinating people.
That's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, they just undo it immediately. So it's just, the whole season's thing for nothing. So then she like is told to assassinate some lady and then doesn't do it because she feels bad for her for no reason. And so then the waif, the evil lady that's been training her, like attacks Arya and stabs her like 8 times in the stomach, but Arya gets away and survives somehow. And then she's like being healed and being fed soup or something in this lady's house, but the waif shows up like a couple days later and kills the lady, and then she's gonna kill Arya, but it was all like an 8D chess game by Arya, who tricks the waif into going into a dark room because somehow Arya had been training while blind, which made her really good in the dark, but the waif didn't know how to do that. So Arya kills the waif in the dark, but we don't get to see it because it's off screen. And then Arya goes back to the Hall of the Dead and does like a 1-2 trickaroo on Jaqen H'ghar and like gets the drop on him with a sword, and he's like, a girl is finally no one, because that's been the whole point of the Hall of the Black and the White, is to make people not have identities, and that makes you a great assassin. But Arya then is like, actually, my name's Arya Stark, bitch, and I'm going home. And Jaqen like smirks, like, that's what I wanted all along. And then we never see him again, and she leaves Bravos. And then like 2 minutes later in the next episode, she shows up at the Frey's place, and all of the Freys get poisoned and died except Walder Frey, whose throat gets slit by Arya, who had somebody else's face. And then she says, I'm going back to Winterfell. Because she Batmaned him.
Yeah, she's getting her revenge.
Yes.
The revenge for her father.
Yes.
There's way more yassing that to come, that's for sure. Yeah, like Nolan said, the reason why we're blitzing through that is because, as you said, it was all undone the following season, which is like just so utterly frustrating that like you're just being gaslit while watching it. You're like, okay, all right, I accept what's happening. Oh, you're just taking everything back that you just did. Why? What are we doing here?
So all the plot we just covered was done in 9 episodes. You know how I talked about how every so often there's like an event episode Like the Battle of the Bastards was like pretty much just one whole episode of a big fight. And like the Winds of Winter, the season finale is the one where Cersei blows up the Sept, and it's like the beginning of that episode is awesome.
Yeah.
What I didn't mention is there's a whole episode dedicated to the Hound, who's not dead yet. It turns out he's been off chopping wood with some people, like a religious revival group in the woods. And so we get to see him chop wood for like half a full episode, and nothing else happens. And then all his friends there get killed off screen by like some bandits. And then the Hound kills them. And then he meets the Brotherhood without banners and is like, "Hey guys, I'm back." And they're like, "Okay." That's just a whole episode.
Yeah, they have him. They have him meet like a similar group to the what are they called? Something with banners.
The Brotherhood without banners.
Yeah.
Westeros's most radical centrists.
Holy shit, that's right. Ian McShane.
Yeah, he's in that one episode as the leader of the random group.
Yeah. Damn. Ray discovered the Hound. Okay. Yeah, it's just worth pointing out there, like, there's a reason why we're trying to blitz through this, aside from it feeling like my brain is eating
On
itself.
fire.
Yeah, just because we've been doing it for a while, but also just the show itself causes you to eat yourself.
Season 7, are you ready?
I've never been more ready for anything in my entire life.
The best part, so I wrote like some brief like plot synopsises for like different parts of the world and the story and summarizing. By the time I got to season 7, the plots are so simple, they're all just one sentence. So
one of them is 2 words.
Cersei waits or watching atrocities.
Yeah, no, 2 of them. Yeah, Cersei waits. But
Yeah,
the amount of wine that's consumed by Cersei.
Yeah, in
somehow
King's
even
Landing,
more alarming.
nothing happens. Cersei and Qyburn are just there, like ruling over nothing. There's no one there. Nothing's happening.
You don't
Euron-
even have anything written for Jon. There's nothing.
Oh, you'll find out why.
It's
So-
completely
I think I forgot about it. In season 6, we're finally introduced to Euron Greyjoy, a fan favorite from the books. In the books, he's like this weird, mysterious, like sorcerer pirate who cuts out people's tongues and wants to like summon eldritch monsters and all this cool shit. Like he has like a horn that controls dragons and he has dragon eggs and like all this awesome stuff. In the show, he's goofy pirate man. So he shows up and he's like literally just like a swashbuckling joke-telling pirate who just takes over the Iron Islands and kills Balon Greyjoy in like season 5, maybe. I don't know. It's really not important. They don't spend a lot of time on him. They don't develop him as a character either. So he takes over and then he's like, I'm going to go to King's Landing because that's where the queen is. And I'm going to fuck her. So he shows up there and Cersei's
That's
like,
literally his objective. His
Yeah.
entire objective is to go there and to get inside of the queen.
so he shows up and Cersei's like, yeah, I'll sleep with you. I don't even care. And then he's like, I'll give you ships if you give me that sweet, sweet thing. And then and then Cersei's pregnant, but she tells Jaime it's his. And then Jaime's like, I don't know if it's mine. Meanwhile, the good guys. Jesus Christ.
What?
Daenerys, just Daenerys being a good guy. Daenerys arrives on the shores and immediately is terrifying to people because she just has an army of like Mongolian riders, savages, and giant evil monsters, and like the eunuch army, just pure evil. Like if you've been watching the show, you could have been tricked into thinking she's the Yas Queen, but she's actually just Hitler. So Hitler shows up with Mongolian raiders and eunuch warriors and giant fire-breathing monsters, and she just starts laying waste to stuff. And by that I mean she doesn't do anything. She just sits in Dragonstone, which used to be Stannis' castle. So it makes sense because Stannis didn't do anything while he was there, so Daenerys wouldn't either. So they just sit in there and wait. And then the Lannisters attack Highgarden. Remember the Tyrells? They take over Highgarden really, really easily, and Olenna's waiting inside, and Olenna's like, by the way, Jaime, I poisoned Joffrey. Tell that bitch sister of yours I did it. And then she dies of poison off screen. And then the good guys, by that I mean Daenerys takes over Casterly Rock, like Lannisport, but nobody's there, so it doesn't matter because it was all a ruse or something. I don't know. Armies just start teleporting for no reason, and they just take over random, like literally for no reason. They just do stuff. And then, like, as the Lannister army is moving the gold they stole from Highgarden back to King's Landing, there's this great battle where Daenerys' troops just massacre all of the Lannisters. And it's a perfect. This was the image you had up before. This is the one I was always going to use for this season because it's the only good episode of this season. It's not even a good episode, but it's a great scene. And it's a great scene mostly because Jaime's worst nightmares are coming true again of an evil Targaryen who burns people alive. So he tries to kill Daenerys and fails. Everyone at the battle is murdered except for Jaime and Bronn because they have plot armor and they need to survive. Daenerys somehow brokers a deal with Jon Snow because Jon is like still scared of the zombies or whatever. I don't know why the zombies haven't been important or relevant since Hardhome. But we got to speed things up. We got to go fast. So then Jon.
That's another reason why we are trying to blitz through this is because the show itself literally speeds up. The show is just like, none of this matters. We got to get the people together. We got to get them all together.
Like, it's just so funny because like season 3 and 4 was one book. And then like the last 2 seasons is like literally just like 3 books worth of material. Like they just crammed it all into 13 episodes. Like we just got to go fast.
Yeah.
HBO offered the creators of the show 11 seasons and they're like, nah, we can do it in 8. They're like, you can have more episodes. Like they're like, nah, we can do it in 7 episodes easy.
Are you sniffing like that to imply that they were just like railing coke?
My impression of the creators of this show is that they themselves are alcoholic whoremongers who almost certainly enjoy cocaine, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I do know one thing for sure.
Our lawyer is telling us to definitely put a lot of those maybes there. Yeah. Keep
thing I know for a fact. They're allegedly, whatever I just said they were. No confirmation. I know for a fact they're bad writers. So I can't prove that they're any of those other things, pimps who literally prostitute 13-year-old women for years in a TV show only to have them strip and get fucked.
We can't prove that. Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway, back to the show. John and
Who is that?
That's Bran. Bran spends the entire season sitting in his wheelchair in Winterfell, unmoving because he can't move the wheelchair by himself and he doesn't have Hodor anymore. So he just sits in one place and other people walk up to him and say like, hey buddy, how you doing? And then he just says crazy shit to them and they're like, oh, okay. And they walk away.
He also is just like warging constantly now, right?
It's implied but never shown because they don't want to show us any of that shit anymore.
They
They're
don't
just
show
done.
us what he's doing, but they show the whites of his eyes, showing that he
Yeah.
is being or going back in time, moving chess pieces / people around, something.
Who has a better story than Brian the Broken? I hope you
What
like
is that
me
from?
putting. That's from this show.
Who says that?
Tyrion.
Oh, that really makes me dislike the last 2 seasons that much worse, that much more.
Anyway, mostly all that is happening in Winterfell, Jon leaves to go meet up with Daenerys, and immediately they're like, we're gonna bang. Like, we get along really well, actually. I can't believe this. And so then Jon needs her to mine dragon glass, because dragon glass weapons will kill the zombies. So then he and his team of like crackpot politicians, because they're all just at this point, all of the characters left alive aren't the smart people, they're just the brain dead ones, except Littlefinger and Varys, who've just both melted their brains for no reason.
Yeah, they are functionally different characters from like 4 seasons ago.
Yeah, and different than they are in the books, because they have like these grand plans in the books that by this point they've abandoned completely just to do something else.
Scripts have been burned by dragons.
Yeah, so Jon and his ragtag group of concussed superheroes decide that in order to stop the zombies, they need to venture north to kidnap a zombie to take south to show Cersei, because doing that will prove that zombies are real, and then Cersei will help them kill the zombies. No one questions this plan. So then Jon, Gendry, the Hound, Thoros, Beric Dondarrion, and Jorah, like I said, concussed superheroes, go north of the wall together and just fight like a million zombies, like just an inhuman number of zombies together. And they kidnap one zombie, but they're on a lake surrounded by zombies, right? And the zombies don't like come get them because zombies can't swim, apparently.
Nope, they don't like water.
So then, since they're trapped on this lake, they're like, we need to send word back to Daenerys because we need to get out of here. So Gendry runs 50 miles back to the wall and then sends a raven to Dragonstone, which takes all of like 2 minutes of screen time. And then Daenerys teleports herself and her dragons up north of the wall and they save everybody. But then the Night King is there and he kills one of Daenerys' dragons. And then everybody escapes except Cold Hands. Remember Cold Hands, Benjen Stark?
Dungeon.
He shows up and saves Jon and then dies horribly off screen. And then Jon somehow didn't get on the dragon, but he makes it back safe. And then the zombies are coming. And then at the end of the episode, the zombies resurrect the dead dragon and then they blow up the wall. Meanwhile, in Winterfell, Arya fights Brienne and proves that she's totally badass.
Do you see my background?
Yes, that's why I mentioned it. Because there's for no reason they fight. Remember, they met before in season 4, and they just love each other, even though then they were kind of enemies or whatever. So then in Winterfell, there's all this political intrigue where Littlefinger is pitting Arya against Sansa for some unknown end. But then they have a big meeting together, and Bran is like, hey, Littlefinger, we all know that you betrayed our dad and caused the war. And he's like, what? How'd you find out? After earlier in the episode, Bran tells Littlefinger chaos is a ladder, just revealing to him that he knows everything. And Littlefinger's like, that doesn't mean anything to me. So then Arya slits his throat, kills him, and everyone cheers. They're like, the guy, yeah, he's dead. So then they take the zombie back to Cersei, and Cersei's like, yeah, that's a zombie.
You're doing it.
And then Euron is like, "Can the zombies swim?" And John says, "No." And then Euron immediately leaves. And then that's season 7.
And then
Jamie
killed that poor girl.
All right, and then in season 8, so Cersei, meanwhile, has made no decisions and has no agency this whole season. She just doesn't do anything.
Again, to be clear, completely different from her character, from what her character would do if they wrested control.
Maybe it's. At any rate, season 8 happens. It starts off with everybody. Bran like tells Jon, he's like, "Hey, you're a Targaryen," because we found that out at some point, that Jon isn't actually Ned Stark's son. He's Lyanna Stark's son, and Lyanna was with Rhaegar, remember? Because Bran has a vision and he sees it. So he tells Sam and Jon, and then Jon tells Daenerys, and then Daenerys is like, "This bitch might take the throne from me." And Jon's like, "She's my queen. I don't want it." That's all he says repeatedly is, "I don't want it," or "She's my queen," over and over again.
There's something else that he says that he like apologizes. He's like, "Oh, sorry." Like there's some bullshit that he just says over and over and over again.
Sorry.
That's so Tim Dillon, it's not even funny.
So then the good guys all gear up in Winterfell to fend off the zombies because they know the zombies are coming. So all the remaining characters who are alive, except Cersei and Euron, are all in Winterfell. And the zombies show up. And then the zombies attack. And there's a big battle. And the battle is basically like if you had sunglasses on, because you can't see anything.
It's so bad.
It's unwatchably bad. Like you just can't tell what's happening because it's too dark. And so let's see. The zombies attack, and there's a bunch of battling that's all really dumb and bad, and there's never any stakes because the enemy is just faceless CGI zombies. And every time it looks like one of our heroes is in trouble, it just cuts away from the battle to another hero. And then when it cuts back to the good guy, they've just cleared off all the zombies. So they trick the Night King somehow.
Just like the audience.
He's an idiot. They trick him into going after Wheelchair Bran, because it turns out this whole time the only thing the Night King wanted was to kill Bran, because he's the history of Westeros. Or he's the memory of Westeros, and somehow if you kill him, the bad guy wins. So he goes after Bran, but then Arya does a trick and kills the Night King. So the Night King's dead. And also during the battle, Jorah dies, and also that one guy that's Jon's friend from the Night's Watch dies, and also Beric Dondarrion finally dies permanently this time. And Melisandre dies. Thoros already died earlier. And then after the battle...
But the Night King is alive, right?
No, I already said Arya killed him.
Oh.
I already said that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there's in the books, there's all this stuff of like prophecies and shit of who would like defeat the evil thing and all this stuff. And it's all just, no, it's just Batman did it. Little kid Batman is the so little kid Batman kills him. Because of like a trick she learned with where you drop a knife and then you gotta stick them with the pointy end. Then in the next episode, Brienne and Jaime finally sleep together and everyone was cheering. But then after sleeping with her, Jaime says, "I'm hateful and I only loved Cersei." And then he leaves stricken Brienne alone with her like gown on, like, "Oh no." He rides back to King's Landing to be with Cersei.
Where's Tormund, the big woman?
Yeah, Tormund's really sad that he didn't get to sleep with her because he likes big women, because he's Tormund's Giantsbane, because he fucks giants. So anyway, then all these remaining good guys are like, all right, well, now that we killed the zombie man, let's go kill Cersei. So they all ride south. But then somehow Missandei gets captured by the enemy and they behead her. Very bad, not good. And the beheading of her makes Daenerys very, very angry. So Daenerys and her forces attack King's Landing, and within like 2 minutes, King's Landing surrenders. They're like, we can't beat you. You guys have dragons. Because
Much
even
burning.
though, there's this, I forgot about this. There's an episode in between, because remember, Daenerys only has 2 dragons now. The zombie dragon like died off screen.
Yep.
Literally. So then
Never to be heard of again.
I forgot there's a scene where Daenerys is flying with Drogon and the other dragon whose name I don't Regal, and it gets sniped out of the air by like these ballista things and dies horribly. And the reason for it, this is an incredible interview given after the episode by one of the creators and writers of the show, D.B. Weiss. He says Daenerys forgot about the Iron Fleet, so they took her by surprise with their big ships and big ballista. So now she's down to 1 dragon. And since we just learned that, 2 dragons are no match for 1 ship with a ballista, King's Landing is covered in ballista, and there's like hundreds of ships in the bay with all have ballistas on them. So Daenerys burns all the ships and all the ballista in 2 minutes, and then the entire city surrenders. Just like that. Just flipping. Then the very next episode, they do a 180.
No ballistas were hurt in the filming of this show.
But then, here's the best part. Because Daenerys remembered that they cut off the head of her friend. So she has her eyes set on the Red Keep, and it looks like finally we're gonna get Cersei, the biggest, evilest character in the whole show. There's never been anyone more evil or more important or more dangerous than Cersei. She's finally gonna die, but then instead Daenerys just burns the entire city to the ground, just massacres all the civilians, just flips a switch in her head and just kill them all. So she kills like everybody and burns the whole city down. And Grey Worm's also mad because he wanted to fuck Missandei with his dick that didn't work or whatever. And so they just massacre like everybody. And the
definitely some parallels between a certain animated show that we won't talk about yet.
Oh, Attack on Titan?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. Spoiler alert for every show and movie ever from here until the end of time.
No, we're on a train that is, it's still on the tracks for us, but it's
crashed and burned 30 minutes ago, but we're still going
way off for the show.
So that's the penultimate episode of the show, is the tremendous and infamous The
King's
Bells.
Landing burning.
That's the episode title, The Bells. There's
the mountain situation.
Yes, a thing the fans had apparently wanted for years was something that the internet had dubbed Clegane Bowl, which is the final battle between the Hound and the Mountain. But the Mountain's been dead for years. This is just some zombified husk of the Mountain. And the Hound also was dead, but got brought back by this church. So then they both die in a fiery blaze, and Qyburn gets his head smashed. And also Cersei and Jaime die off screen, get crushed by bricks. And Jaime with 1 arm kills Euron. He just kills him. Just randomly gets him real good.
With his bad arm. Yeah.
With his he just gets him. He got him.
Killed by bricks is such a funny line.
It's true. Completely accurate. They literally died of bricks. So then the episode ends with Arya like riding away on a white horse, going somewhere important. And then
what could the symbolism be with a white horse?
Then the next episode starts with Arya wandering around on foot through the city, because they couldn't even get that continuity. Like, there's literally no continuity anymore. Just everything is broken.
Where did the white horse go? Yep. It's almost like all peace is lost. All hope is lost.
So then there's this imagery of Daenerys with Drogon behind her with these evil wings, and she looks like Satan, and she's pure evil now. She turned to Hitler in 5 minutes, and And everybody's like, "Ooh, this isn't good." And Tyrion resigns as being her advisor, and so she puts him in jail. And then Jon is like, "Hey, Daenerys, can I have a word with you in private in the throne room that's now all hollowed out and shit?" And she's like, "Yeah, my nephew Jon that I didn't trust 2 episodes ago, but now I don't care anymore. I want to be with you forever." And Jon's like, "Hey, so we took over, right? Now what?" She's like, "Now we need to go and kill every single person in the entire Westeros. Okay, we're gonna kill all of them." I see the gif. Uh, so then instead of doing that, Jon stabs Daenerys, and then Drogon shows up and burns the crown, or not the crown, the throne, the Iron Throne. He burns it because the dragon understood that metaphorically the throne represented power.
Metaphorically.
And then Drogon flies away, and then Jon immediately leaves the throne room and confesses to the murder, and then gets thrown into jail. And then the convening council of all surviving members gets together.
No, easily one of the least favorite scenes of the whole show.
And so this scene's incredible. So it has Samwell Tarly, it has Yara Greyjoy. Oh, Theon died, if I didn't mention that, during the Battle of Winterfell. Just got killed, didn't matter. Sansa Stark, an unnamed Martell character, literally never given a name. Edmure Tully. And there's got to be like one other person that's there.
Bronn.
Oh, Bran.
Bronn.
Maybe Davos
Bronn
is there too.
and Bran, isn't
Bronn and Bran and probably Davos.
Holy shit, we actually never mentioned Davos, one of my favorite characters. Sir Davos Seaworthy.
We'll get to him, don't worry.
The smuggler.
So they have this big meeting where they're like, now who's in charge and what do we do with Jon? And so they ask Tyrion what to do, and Tyrion gives this like speech where he's like, war, death, kings, gold. He just lists off a bunch of stuff that's in the show and then just says like, what do these things have in common? He's like drunk. He's just like, what does this stuff have in common? It's all about the Game of Thrones. And I think, okay, here's what I think. Who has a better story than Bran the Broken? And everyone that's just sitting there is like, what do you mean? And he's like, I think Ira said that cripples, bastards, and broken things I like. And he's broken and crippled. So let's make him king. And no one disagrees. They're all like, okay, I don't even want to be here anymore. And so immediately after they decide that Bran Stark will be king, Sansa's like, all right, I secede. The North will be its own territory. And everyone's like, yas, slay. They just cheer for, oh, Grey Worm is there. I forgot Grey Worm's still alive. So then Grey Worm's like, can we kill Jon Snow? And they're like, nah, just exile him to the North. So they're like, okay. So then that's what happens. Jon goes north with Tormund and Ghost, and they all live happily ever after in a sequel show that's being made currently. And Arya gets on a ship to go east because she doesn't know what's east. And even though Bran has a compendium of knowledge about all that's in the east, she doesn't ask him. She just gets on the ship and goes away. And Sansa goes north to be Slay Queen of the North. And Davos, remember Onion Man? He becomes master of ships. And Bronn, remember the thief that steals a lot? He becomes master of coin. And Tyrion becomes Hand of the King again. And Brienne becomes the sword leader. And Sam becomes master of books, or whatever they call that guy. And Grey Worm gets on a boat to go with the Dothraki to go farm someplace.
Oh, don't forget about Willis, Lord of Highgarden and Warden of the South.
Is that a character?
Yeah, that's the one that you mentioned.
That's Willis Martell?
Yeah.
He's not given lines, nor is his name said. So
Nope.
And that's the end of Game of Thrones. So the last 2 seasons are so stupefying that all the goodwill that the show builds in the first 4 seasons, by the end of the show, is just crumbled to dust. For a very long time, Dexter just had the worst ending of a show ever. This is a slight tangent, but it's worth going on here. Dexter's a show about a serial killer who kills serial killers. And at the end of the show, he murders the only person who ever loved him and then retires to become a lumberjack. And that's how the show ends. So it's just a series of boneheaded decisions ending in some random shit.
You mentioned Brienne, right?
Yeah, she's the sword lady now. She's the master of swords. She writes in a book. There's a book that has a history of all the people who ever had swords. And Jamie's part is unfinished. So she writes in, he was a good man, even though the last 3 things he did were atrocious, including to her. But she doesn't care. She rewrites history.
Cool. Yeah, so Bran has awful appointments. His hand is used by the writers of the show in order to bring the show to a very dissatisfying end.
I never said how Varys died. At some point in the 8th season, Varys decides that Dany's already evil, so he writes a bunch of letters to the Lord saying, don't support her, so she burns him to death.
Right.
Forgot about that.
Burns the spider whisperer, master of spiders, whatever his name is. Spider-Man. Spoder boy. Yeah. So in bringing all of that to a close, I think we should definitely discuss some things if our brains are still working after all of that.
I'm gonna need a short break to
That's fair.
Stare at the sun. I knew this would happen talking about this show, that it would be fun for the first half and then just
it reflects the show itself. It really does.
So the whole reason why I want to make a Star Wars. I want to do a kiddie movie. D.B. Weiss and Benioff, these 2 fellas named Dan, are the people who created and wrote the majority of the show. And they were allegedly given the show, permission to adapt the show by Martin, because they accurately predicted that Jon was the child of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, which was not a difficult thing to guess from the books. That was all. So even though these guys are maniacs, they were just given the keys to the show, and after they didn't even run out of, after using up the bits of Martin's material they liked, they just decided, fuck it, let's subvert his subversions and then just take things off the rails, and then let's speed up the end of the show so we can go make a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, the end of this directly mirrors Bullet Train. I'm not sure who Sandra Bullock or Ryan Reynolds is in this case, but oh well. Let's take a break. We'll be right back to give our final thoughts